My aunt thought she was sneaky. She somehow got the inheritance changed at the end, and she got everything given to her in this dramatic inheritance showdown. But oh boy, when I tell you karma came swiftly in this story, you've seen nothing yet. My aunt was one of two kids my grandparents had. My mother was the solar opposite to my aunt. She worked from age of 12 in my grandfather's shop, never asked for anything, and eventually managed to start her own business. My aunt never held down a job till the age of 26, who constantly was stealing from her parents and was in trouble all the time. Despite this, my aunt was spoiled by my grandmother, and so were her children. She had 3 kids from 3 different men, and her first husband was not one of them, if you know what I mean. Didn't matter what my aunt or her kids did, my grandmother would always jump to their defense. She never had time for my mom and her kids unless it was to get something from us. The only reason my mom would visit her was because she loved my grandmother. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away in 2004, and a few months after my nan decided to wrap up a new will, my mother and my aunt were both present for it when she signed it, so they knew what was in it. It made it so that when she passed away, her home would be sold and the money split 25% each to my mom and aunt, and the remaining 50% would go evenly to the grandchildren. At the time, the home was worth more than 500,000 euros, so it would be a nice little inheritance, but nothing life-changing. In 2010, my mom died after an accident, and didn't have a current will in place. As she no longer had her business and was renting a house, she didn't have anything of much monetary value. The only thing she was concerned about was what would be done at her funeral should she pass away, but had told me everything she wanted. The music, the flowers, the coffin color, and even what people were to wear at the funeral. She wanted people to wear bright, warm colors. So, when she passed, my aunt and nan took over all arrangements and tried to undo all the things I've told them. The songs were going to be songs I knew my mom didn't like. The flowers were all the wrong colors, and they picked a hideous coffin. With the help of my siblings, we were able to change a few of the things back to what they were supposed to be, but the coffin could not be changed for some reason, and my nan refused to let people come dressed as clowns, as she said it. So it was all black. It was pretty infuriating. After the funeral, my nan had her will changed. My siblings and I were told by our aunt that she did not have any involvement with the writing of the will, and our nan told us that she changed it so that mom's share would go to her kids instead. All good, we thought. After mom passed away, my nan just stopped talking about my mom. At first, we thought it was because she was still recovering from losing her daughter. But even 5 years after mom passed, she still would not talk about her. Even if you brought up a story about mom, Nan would very obviously try and change the subject, usually about how hard my aunt and her crappy kids had it. And if you went to talk to her about your own problems, she would somehow bring it back to my aunt. I'd suffered a mental breakdown after my mother's death, so you can imagine how much it hurt her to hear, well, X has had it so much worse. In 2016, my nan passed away. She had written down what she wanted to be done for her funeral, and it was basically all the same things that she had picked out for my mom's funeral. Even the music to be played. I don't know why she tried to have a dress rehearsal funeral using my mom as the stand-in, but it was obvious that what she was trying to do. So, after a couple of months, our siblings and I were waiting to hear about the will reading, and my aunt kept telling me, "Oh, it'll be another month before we can do the reading." I didn't mind. I wasn't fussed about the money, to be honest. But my oldest brother was hoping to use the money to pay for a honeymoon for him and his then fiancée. And my younger brother was about to start university, so it would be a heck of a help. Eventually, my dad bumped into the solicitor my grandmother had used to deal with her will and asked what was happening. The solicitor let it slip that the will had already been read, and then it left everything to my aunt. When my dad questioned this, the solicitor told him that my aunt had been present when the will was written, despite promising that she had nothing to do with it. When confronted, my aunt initially tried to deny it, but eventually admitted to lying to all of us. She showed us the will, and it confirmed what we already knew. The house and all of its contents were now my aunt's. This included my granddad's war medals that he fought in the Second World War for. When I told her that he had promised them to be mine before he died, she said, "Well, unless you have it in writing, you'll have nothing in this house. Anyways, I already gave them to Clive." My heart sank. Clive, not his real name obviously, was her oldest son and the dictionary definition of a duck-up. He'd been out of prison for stealing and dealing drugs, and I knew that the moment that jerk got his hands on my granddad's medals, they would have been sold. We looked into taking her to court over the will, but everything we spoke and said, we probably would not get anything out of it. She immediately put the house up for sale at a close range of 750,000 euros. She had crapped off too many people in her town, so she was going to sell the house and move closer to her daughter, who lives in a big city. An offer was made on the house, and she put down a deposit on a house near the big city. I thought that was that. Here's where karma, beautiful old karma, she comes to play again. The people who wanted my nan's house had a survey done on the house to see if there was any issues. Oh boy, there were. Turns out the land the house was built on was too soft for that type of house it was, and it was sinking. It sunk about 2 centimeters in 40 plus years. Plus, my nan and granddad have lived there, but the sinking had accelerated to 1 centimeter per year. This meant that within 3 years the house would need some serious work or be knocked down. The new value of the house? 60,000 euros. The buyer immediately pulls out, having not even put down a deposit. She couldn't buy her new house but still had to pay the deposit on it. And while this was all happening, she let Clive move in with her into her house that she rented from the council. He wasn't even allowed to live in any of the council houses because he's trashed every single one he's ever been given. Someone reported this and she was kicked out of her home. She was forced to move into my nan's old home and she couldn't even live anywhere else. So there she is, living in a crumbled down house, withering craphead son and her partner. She was stuck there for 2 years. Every time I saw her, she would try and start talking to me, and I would just ignore her and walk away. One time, as I was walking away, she screamed, "Your mother deserved to die for having someone like you," in the middle of a busy, bustling street. Someone reported her to the police and she had an official warning for them, and was ridiculed on Facebook. Every time I saw her after that, she looked more and more miserable. Eventually, she just sold the house for something like 85,000 euros and moved in with her daughter in the big city. I lost contact with her and her children after this. I thought karma had been issued. Oh, but karma still wasn't done with her. I bumped into one of her former friends and she told me what happened after she left our town. She moved into her daughter's home. Let's call her daughter Sue. But they only had a 3-bedroom house and 3 children. My aunt and her partner had to live in the smallest room in the house while my aunt looked for a job and a home to rent. Even with 85,000, she could not afford a home anywhere. After about a month, my aunt's partner ran out after emptying her bank account. She was left stranded in Sue's house, not contributing to anything because all the money she's making goes to bingo. Eventually, Sue and my aunt gets into a screaming match, and my aunt said something along the lines of, "I should never have had you." Sue immediately kicked her out of the house after that, so again, there's my aunt in a city where she knows nobody. No money, no home, and the last bridge she had, a smoldering wreck. Last anyone's heard, she was living in a caravan in the roughest part of the city, and she can no longer work because she's suffering early onset arthritis and can no longer move her hands. I know I shouldn't get joy of saying something like this, seeing something like this happen to another person, but it does bring me a little bit of peace. I love what happened. Something to think about is this comment. I'm wondering if one of them, mom or aunt, was an affair baby, If Mom was, that explains why Nan hated her, a constant reminder of her husband's betrayal. If Aunt was, that explains why she was incredibly spoiled, and the GC as a reminder of forbidden love. Guys, I would love to know your thoughts on that opinion. Do you think that maybe OP's mother or the aunt was an affair baby? Drop your thoughts down below. The final story of the day is titled this. Am I the a-hole for calling my mom when my husband refused to listen to me? I'm 26 female, recently moved into my first home. I'm also 4 months pregnant with our first baby. The pregnancy has been very hard and I have horrible morning sickness. It reached a really bad point where I passed out, hit my head, and my doctor admitted me to the hospital for a week. When I got home, my husband allowed his brother's family to move into our 2 of 3 bedrooms. They were evicted, I don't know why. One room, my office, it had tossings of room paper everywhere. The house was a complete wreck. Trash, dirty clothes, used diapers. I started to cry. It was like a light flipped. My husband was no longer the same. My husband told me it wasn't that bad. My reply was, fine, then you should have the house cleaned up before I wake up. Completely exhausted, I fell asleep for 4 hours. So, I woke up, went to get a drink of water, and I couldn't. Every glass we own is scattered around the house. They didn't even clean a single thing, and I passively aggressively started picking up the dirty dishes and washed them. The following morning, I was trying my best to work when the kids were crying nonstop, banging on walls, so on, and their mom was in her room for hours just ignoring them. When my husband came home, he was upset with me over how I didn't make his brother's wife feel welcome in our home by helping with their kids when she was tired. Then continued to complain how nothing was done while he was at work all day in the house. Yep, the same one he didn't clean. That led to a fight when I told him I'm so sick to have company and they need to leave. To which he replied they're his family and he won't kick them out. And I start crying again. I was beyond frustrated, exhausted, and I physically could not do it anymore. I called my mom and asked if I could come stay with her, telling her the whole story in front of my husband, who at this point was completely shocked and angry. Also, I could tell he wasn't sure what to do. My mom came with my brothers. I have 3 older brothers. My mom's super angry and told my husband, quote, since your family can stay, so can we. My mom quickly took charge. I was went to bed, and my brother started cleaning, complaining loudly at how disgusting my brother-in-law's family is, along with what a horrible husband my husband is for putting me through this while I'm sick. I get a text message from my mother-in-law for calling me an a-hole, for not helping my husband clean up the house and putting my brother-in-law in an uncomfortable position by having my mom boss him around. Edited to add update. When mother-in-law showed up, she was super angry outside. I could hear shouting, but couldn't understand what was said. Once inside, she was shocked. My house looked really bad. My brother-in-law lied to her about what happened, and my mother-in-law quickly started to help my mom in the bossing mode. My house is not just cleaned up now, but deep cleaned. My brother-in-law and his kids are now staying with my mother-in-law. She didn't know about the eviction, and my in-laws helped them financially a couple of months ago. My mother-in-law was not happy about it. Sister-in-law refused to come out of the bedroom. She would scream through the door, but that was about it until her family came to pick her up. Last little bit, I did talk to my husband. He seemed very remorseful, and I asked for some space, and he's staying at a hotel. He asked to come by and talk to me tonight. My mom and dad are here. Both moms felt like I should have someone here since I'm sick, and both moms have set up a meal plan, or they trade off with what I'll bring to dinner. It was my mother-in-law's idea, and thank you all for the advice. I truly appreciate it. Here's what happened when I talked with my husband. Summing it up, since it lasted 4 hours, it was a hard talk. He's remorseful. Brother-in-law was only supposed to stay for a couple of nights, then leave originally when he thought that they would be gone before I got home. He said he's tired and emotionally upset himself. When I originally passed out, my husband left to help a friend move. He came home and found me, and he said he has no idea how long I was on the floor hurt. He was originally scared I died. Since then, he's had nightmares, on top of dealing with his family drama. He admitted to dumping his frustration onto me, when it's not even my fault. He begged me for another chance. The next steps. We're still separated. He plans on staying at my brother's house. We're going to go to marriage counseling and individual counseling, and he asked if he could come with me to the home to help nurse each night to my doctor's appointments, and, well, I agreed to that. And an update on brother-in-law. Guys, his wife admitted to having an affair. She told him she got married too soon and doesn't want the responsibilities of being a mom anymore. I'm not sure what'll happen with him and the children, but I'm shocked that she feels this way, especially with children. Alright, so this comment got so much attention, we have to read this one. Wait, your mother-in-law called to fuss at you for involving your mother? There's the pot kettle thing. Not the a-hole 1000%, but house guest in a shared home requires 2 yeses and only 1 no. Both of you agree or it shouldn't happen. Your husband has treated you abominably. I'm not sure I could deal with what honestly has gone down. Can you go stay with your mom? So it just goes on and on and on about the huge sign of disrespect and the major red flags. But I want to know from you guys what exactly your thoughts are for this story. Or maybe you've also been in a situation like this with your family coming to overstay their welcome. Drop your thoughts down below. Let's talk about it in the comment section, guys. That's going to end today's stories. I hope you enjoyed them. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing as it helps support me and you'll never miss out on another story. Guys, have a great day and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.